It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Britt,
Here.
Kirby,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Yeah.
Here. Next item will be motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Wondered if we might have the Windsor Ambulance District meeting minutes. I had a couple questions on it. Would it be
There's,
appropriate to add it?
we can't ask them. You'll have to direct those questions to them. It's really not information for us to share, really. It's public information, but it's not our information, so you could ask Eric those questions.
Okay.
Could bounce them, and he can get answers from them.
All right. Thank you. And are we going to have a doctor's report?
I assume so.
Medical report? So we need to probably add that
Yeah.
in.
Is there any other changes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve that agenda.
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same. Everyone's had a chance to look over the previous meeting's minutes. With no additions or corrections, I'll stand approved as presented. Announce the visitors, Faith Beavis, and Roy Pennington, and Dr. Jefferson. There was no public comments sent in, so we'll move on to the officer's report, chief's report.
All right. You will find at the back of the report, there's an article in the Democrat that mentioned our policy on this. It's not part of my report, but I did want to provide the board with a copy of that guideline for our inclement weather. Should you get any copies, or should you get any questions rather from the public about it, just get information. Starting with operational changes, I did want to make the board aware that we've seen a pretty significant decrease in pre-hospital COVID patient contacts. We're only about a third or half of where we were last month. So almost, I hesitate to say normal, but almost back to normal on applications we see throughout the month who've had COVID or suspected COVID patients. 29 so far in February versus more than twice that last month at the same time. As everyone knows, Thursday is a snow day apparently for Pettis County nowadays. So we have had a couple snow and ice events. Our snow removal costs, I don't have that calculated in front of me. I did not get a chance to get those numbers, but as far as I did want to kind of put the bug in the board's ear about looking at maybe some cost analysis of what we're spending on snow removal versus actually doing it ourselves with a small vehicle, a small blade just to do the lots. So maybe something down the road a little bit we might want to look at. No official request tonight. Major equipment, nothing to report. No accidents, work comp claims pending. We do have fuel costs for this month, or excuse me, for January down there. There's a lot of blanks. Those just indicate no maintenance was done on those vehicles, so I was not able to calculate cost per mile, or there was no fuel used. You can see those were a couple of the command vehicles and units 8 and 9, which are backlined right now, so they didn't get any charges on them for the month. Vehicle mileage, you can see I was able to make the report a little skinnier on this one because the miles are stacking up on some of the smaller units. Nothing real significant, no big surprises there. The picture, the building and grounds, as far as that gutter damage, we've seen this. This is about the third time we've seen it. It's pretty significant. I don't know how well the picture shows it, but you can see how that guttering is supposed to look on the far left side and where it sags. It's just all that snow comes running down off the roof. And I don't know what the fix for that is at this point, but I'd like to go ahead and maybe get some estimates or at least some evaluations of it and see what it's going to take to keep that from happening. I know some of the steeper roofs around town have little, I don't know the names of them, but there was little tabs, snow tabs, if you will, to keep that from happening and melt in place. But what's happened across the street is over the years that gutter became sprung, and every time it just gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse. to where it was dumping big old icicles and snow and a lot on people's cars and so forth right around the building. So pretty bad, just a maintenance project. I'm gonna have to look into probably either repairing or replacing some of that gutter, as well as some sort of tabs on the roof to keep it from just sliding off there all the time.
Are we pretty sure that this is an ice damming issue above the heated areas, which would be the work area, and then further east above the garage where we have heated area?
It could possibly be, but I mean, I'm not up there to really determine that. I know that it's a problem all the way down south. I haven't really seen it happen on the north, and I'm assuming that's because wintertime, we don't get as much sun over there.
This gutter is, I've looked at it, it is sprung. Once it gets sprung like that, you cannot fix it. I mean, it properly. I'd say we address the ice damming issue. So make that area before we, because this gutter does have to be replaced. And it's because all that water is dumping right over that door. Whoever walks in that door, I don't know if you realize it gets soaking wet.
Oh, I've been one of those people.
It's-
Yeah, that's good.
And there's been icicles 4 or 5 foot hanging off there. I've seen when I drove by.
Yeah, it's definitely more, the last couple of snows we've had have had a pretty significant layer of ice underneath them, and I think that's maybe the worst.
And I don't know what that's one thing about preparing an ice dam issue, but I know that people do, there are solutions.
Also, let's see if I can get some estimates or at least some advice on what's right there. Moving along to page 3 of the report. As far as community and public relations, this was supposed to be tabbed out, but we did have a Sedalia Democrat article from February 18th. Experience and equipment keeps Pettis ambulances rolling. Hence the copy of our weather policy there in the back, or weather SOG, I should say. Chris Howell wrote a real nice article and had lots of good comments from Assistant Chief Pennington, as well as our EMT, Virginia Kausman. Great article. It's available online if you want to take a look at it. If you don't have access to that, let me know. I'm sure I can get the individuals a copy of it. COVID task force meeting, no changes there. Like I said, we are seeing a significant decrease, as well as the county has seen a significant decrease, thankfully, from January in COVID cases. So that's helped out with some good news finally from that, about half of where we were in January. We are now receiving regular follow-up information from Bothwell. As they apply to be their trauma center, it is a requirement of any trauma center to provide trauma follow-ups, as well as stroke and STEMI, but right now we're doing trauma. This is a really nice thing that happens. A lot of times EMS, being at the very beginning of that chain of survival, we don't get a lot of information after the patient goes through the healthcare system, from treatment, urgent treatment, to critical care, stays in the ICU, to finally discharge and rehab. We don't ever hear about that. With trauma, now that's a kind of a requirement of trauma centers to actually provide at least some initial follow-up care or follow-up information, so that we can change. Evidence-based medicine is where we kind of want to be right now, and this is the best way to get that evidence is find out how these patients, what the outcome is on these patients. Could we do anything differently that will improve their care? So obviously we are very interested in that. It's been a great help. We'll get files of them all at once. I shuffle them over to Justin and Dr. Gus, who can see them at that point, and then address any issues we might have, which guides training, which guides CQI. It's just, it really brings everything full circle. So I wanted to mention that that's happening, and that is very much appreciated information. I did not have a chance to talk to Mr. Newsom about this, but we did go ahead and set things in motion on the door security system. I didn't know if you had any new information on that, Ryan, but yeah, it's pretty much like everything else. There's a delay on everything, but it has been ordered at this point. The interviews for full-time and part-time medic positions, those are over with. We did go ahead and put some EMTs on as full-time EMTs to take the place of ones that had left or transition over to paramedic. Nobody knew these were PRN staff that were working full-time hours to begin with. So they are on now, and they've filled all our needs for EMTs this time. The second item there, I actually have 2 out. I've got one paramedic, I should have said, out on maternity leave, and another paramedic out on some on a shoulder injury leave. So don't have anything going on with 5229 right now. Nothing to report as far as any status changes this week, and haven't had any resignations or terminations, thankfully. So that is the end of my report.
So you don't have any questions for Eric?
With regard to the security system, will that be installed this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
The intent is to get it in this year.
Right.
Yeah. Everything else is so delayed. I haven't heard of any significant reasons for that.
I didn't think there'd be delays, there was something we were wanting to do, it's much more.
Yeah.
And just for the record, when you guys go on the inclement weather response, it is nice that you let the hospital know in advance, and we cover that every day. Or how
Yeah.
and PCAD will be rather for the displaying until further notice.
Yeah. Dispatch is brought into the loop there, as well as the Bothwell. That is definitely part of the choreography that occurs between our battalion chiefs and the hospital, and now so much dispatch as well. So yeah, it's quite an ordeal when that happens. A lot of coordination needs to take place.
Are there any other questions? Thanks, Eric. Well, we'll move on to the CFO report.
That's on page 4, the sales tax receipts. We received $260,591.55. That's $53,701.18 over last year's amount. So that's almost a 30% increase over last year. For the same period. Any questions on that? Next couple pages are the EMS monthly report showing billing where we're at there. You can see for January, we had 509 trips that were billed for $583,580.70. So those emails will start rolling in here. Any questions on that report? Yes, sir.
What's that green line represent?
Which one?
On
There's a
the-
trip count and
Yeah,
an
on-
average loaded miles.
On both of them?
So,
Is that an average or something?
so the green, I believe, is where we're at currently, and the blue is where we've been in previous years. So we've only had them, what now? A year and a half, so that's the data.
And a loaded mile is
So that is the miles from pickup to the drop-off destination. For the patient. Because that's all we can bill for. Any other questions? Page 12 is the bank balances on the 17th versus the 3rd. And then the 17th, 2022 versus 21. The total increase there year over year is 824,000. Any questions on that? Page 13 is our tax reserve analysis, up about a week from last meeting. So standard ebb and flow of everything. Check register is pages 14 through 16. Any questions on that? Page 17 is the current bills outstanding, and 18 through 21 or 20 are the details of that. Any questions?
On 13, the months in cash reserve, is there a number that we're looking for that says, hey, or does that change quite a bit because of inflation and the economy and all? Is there-
No, I mean, it's just based on what we've got budgeted for the year and what we have in the bank.
I was just wondering how do I know if those numbers are really good or if I don't know what we're shooting at, you know, to where we can say, oh, that's a good number.
Yeah,
I mean, we're pretty good here. The board training we go to says to have 3 to 6 months
Yeah,
in reserves. Our auditor says 18 months, so, you know,
wow, that's a lot.
yeah. But
That's
We're
a big
not-
spread.
we're not too bad, but you know, with 3.6 million, we're only 5.3 months in reserves.
the training we went through was, it's kind of taught along the lines of fire districts. So there may be a little different philosophy. You know, I've always tended to look at our auditors' suggestions, look at the firefighters' suggestions for their type districts, shoot it down the middle, and we talk in a real general term of 6 to 9 months is something we ought to target here because of the way that we look at our money. And I don't know, Steve,
I wish we had that much money, but no. The standard, when I went to the training, they said 180 days or higher. And then they said 180 days to basically a year, wherever you have come. So, you know, you never know what's gonna come. 2026, Medicare is gonna go broke, according to the federal government. And how are they gonna pay for that? With drastic cuts in payment. So, you know, the more you have in the bank, Medicare is the biggest payer, you know. We're prepared for the worst sometimes.
But we also have the tax base. So,
You have the tax base,
You know.
and the tax base is getting stronger.
yeah,
And that's where they said, if you are tax-based in the training, if you are tax-based, you know, you still want to look at what you're comfortable with, but 180 days would be the minimum you want to shoot for, even with your tax base.
okay.
So that was in the training.
right?
That came-
Yeah, I was curious
Yeah.
if it flops around or if it's fairly steady, that's the standard. So 6 to 12 months, so 6 months, we get 6 months. Oh, okay. Bring it on.
Well, I mean, you know, we've all witnessed, I've made a transfer out of our bank of $690,000 that we didn't anticipate ever have to pay. So there's those things that can happen unexpectedly without anything that you've done to hit the taxpayer. So, unfortunately.
Ask a quick question. Sure. That's okay. The one that's in bold, the month's cash reserve, and days cash reserve, that includes money. That includes all money. So any money that hasn't been spent, say like on a new ambulance or anything, that's the whole pot there, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then the number below month's cash reserve after encumbrances, credit funds is maybe that adjusted for all of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. We pay for all those things we say we're gonna pay for.
Okay.
We'd only have 3 months.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Jamie.
That is
Question. If not, I'll take a motion to approve payment of outstanding bills. Do that a second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Dr. Gustafson, do you have a report for us?
Yeah. Justin has been working on the protocols for several months. And this afternoon, we finalized that, spent a little more than over an hour going through it with him. And we have, he changed the format, so it's easier to go between problems. And also, the technology has made it easier for us to have links within a protocol So if there's a particular medication that's referenced, it's highlighted, you can click on that medication, and it'll take you directly to the formulary where it can show you how to administer that medication if you have any questions. It's going to be a lot easier, with this electronic version for our medics to use. And I'm really happy that we finally got it all together. And we're making a few changes in terms of medications, adding some. And the ongoing perpetual shortages, which you never know from 1 month to the next or 1 quarter to the next, what's going to be available and what's not. Hopefully circumvent some of those problems and keep things flowing. When you can't find a peripheral IV, we have the option of doing a bone insertion IV. And typically the first location that was ever identified was in the tibia, just the knee. And then more recently, they discovered that up here in the upper arm was a really great site because it had a high flow. One of the problems with the tibia is it doesn't have a very high flow rate. You really have to put pressure if you're giving IV fluids, or even if you're using a syringe to give a medication. It takes a lot of pressure to get that medication or fluid through there. And with what's called the humeral IO, it has an astounding flow rate. You can push 7 liters an hour if you ever. I mean, you would never want to give that much fluid that quickly, but it's just almost like a central line. The problem with this one is it pops out fairly easily. You lose it. Well, now, in fact, Justin and I had both seen the same podcast, but they're talking about the distal femur, the thigh bone here. It has a really similar flow rate, but because the bone is thicker, it's much more stable. And so we're talking about making that change for our folks here especially like in a code situation where you've got people, pumping on the chest. This is a really inconvenient location, but you put it down here above the knee and it's out of the way of where everybody's working. And so that's a change that we're going to be instituting here pretty quickly. So, any questions from you folks?
So your protocols, those are more medication driven, or you also do have protocols as far as diagnosis driven, like for stroke?
Yeah. Procedures, especially like around traumas, or like asthma, or the CHF is one where, using BiPAP or CPAP and nitroglycerin to help ease that congestion in the lungs. So they're a mixture of both.
I've seen that procedure used on an infant that required, went in the shin.
Yeah.
6 months old.
Veins are hard to find on them in the first place.
Right.
And so it was really helpful when they discovered that they could do that.
Yeah, they had no idea that they did that if they couldn't get an might be started. That was new to me when I.
But they're even recommending that distal femur for pediatric patients as well. Again, because it's more stable and it has better flow than what's below the knee. All right, thank you very much.
Good to see that.
Thank you. Strategic Planning Committee.
Okay, we had a meeting last week, just kind of bringing everybody up to speed on where we're at. Draft was laid out, completely restructured to make a lot more sense, basically, not only to the planning committee, but as well as it's an intended target audience, which is you gentlemen, as well as our partners in the public. But what we came up with is essentially some ideas blatantly stolen from Bothwell. Thank you, Steve. Summary page in the beginning of it, which will outline our goals, recommendations, and objectives. So the difference between those is, I'll just kind of go through those so everybody kind of knows what to expect with this report. The recommendations that we make throughout this strategic plan are going to be identifying areas of particular interest to the district or board members, so whether that's new or existing. They're typically non-action item designed to inform readers and provide guidance using our district's historical perspective and sound management and administrative practices. Some of those issues, for example, might include our involvement or lack thereof in legislative efforts, lobbying, our emergency services partners and communities' needs, economic considerations, the philosophy and vision of the board, administrative staff. Basically, a lot of the more idealistic items that aren't necessarily found in our bylaws. Our goals are more of an overarching benchmarks for the district. Our goals are going to be the things that carry forward, no matter what our objectives change, but our goals will be, some examples might be our mission viability. How viable is the district and its continued operations? How well we're employing, recruiting and retaining our employees, clinical patient care, like Dr. Gustafson was just talking about, and some operational objectives like how we might grow the district to meet community needs, or how the district might grow should we need to, based on some specific parameters. The objectives is where the tall grass starts, and this would be the flip side of that cover page in this document. The objectives is going to be very specific and measurable items. That stuff the board can see. Are we accomplishing our goals? Is the chief accomplishing? So you're going to be able to actually say that these items were done. We want them done in this amount of time. Some examples of that might be some measurable performance objectives, such as how quickly are we getting out of the ambulance station when the calls come in? What is our percentage of return spontaneous circulation and cardiac arrest patients? Those are very easily identifiable with the data we have, and there are also very important areas that we always constantly strive to improve in. So those are measurable objectives, and there's many more of them to list, but that's just some examples of how that's going to be laid out. As far as getting the plan to the board of directors, I guess I have sort of an official ask tonight, official/unofficial ask tonight, is that the board consider this would be for the committee to go over the outline of the plan, to get your gentlemen's eyes on it, to basically look and see where we're at. If there's anything that you'd like changed, that you agree or want added, basically put the finishing touches on it as a board, and then have it formally presented at an open board meeting subsequently after that in March. Probably the second board meeting in March would be ideal. At this point in time, I would like to be able to schedule something the third week in March, but I can get with you all individually or by email to sort that out. I don't put anybody on the spot here tonight, but that's what we're shooting for. Basically, we really want to get it out before April, before the board has any elections or anything like that, that way we can kind of get our time schedules around that. Without objection, I would say that if it's okay with the board, I'll be reaching out to each of you and try and set up some times. That's what I got.
Are there any questions for Eric on the strategic planning committee?
I just want to thank him for his work. The project that I got to see, it was a lot of time and work invested in it. I want to say thank you to Eric and Jamie and appreciate that.
We'll move on to unfinished business, the ambulance vehicle replacement, equipment and building fund transfers.
21. So the balances on February 15th on the first column there of each of those accounts. I just left $1,000 as a remaining balance in each one of those accounts. The budget amount that we have for 2022 split into the different categories. I did leave the excess building out of this because that money is sitting in CDs. So this is just the other facility improvements for the building, such as the key fob system, some other big items we had on that section. And then you can see that we've already purchased a couple of the equipment items. So that was stair chairs and a cot, I believe. Yes, for the new units. So the remaining is the transfer that we'll need to make to those accounts to cover what's left of our capital expenses for 2022. Any questions on that?
Are there any questions on those transfers? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the transfer of those funds.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second?
Sir.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSMo 610.021, section 1.
So moved.
Do that second. All in favor, and that'd be a roll call.
Brown?
Yes.
Todd?
Yep.
Rick?
Yes.
Turkey?
Yes.
Davis?
Yeah.
Taylor?
Yep.